This is the prompt we will be presenting to students. How are wildfires a danger to the environment and the people living in their path? Use text evidence from 2 sources to answer the prompt. First, I'm going to look at the steps I need to follow when analyzing the prompt. My first step is identify what type of text you are expected to write. To determine what type of text I'm supposed to write, I'm going to look at the flowchart. I start here with number 1. Is the prompt asking you to write a story, add dialogue to a story you read, finish or start a story you have read? When I look back at the prompt, it's pretty evident that I'm not being asked to write a narrative. I'm not being asked to include dialogue. There's nothing about orientation, complication, and resolution. There's nothing about characters. So the answer to my flowchart would be no. Since the answer to number 1 is clearly no, I now go on to number 2. Is the prompt asking you to write about something you have read? Let's look back at the prompt. Based on the fact that I'm being told to use text evidence from 2 sources, it does sound like I am going to write about something I have read. Thus, I will automatically use the response to text template. Now that I've established I'm going to write a response to text, I moved on to number 2. Identify the text you will be writing about. When I look back at the prompt, I can see that it does not explicitly name the text. Some prompts will, and some prompts might not. This prompt does not. It just says use text evidence from 2 sources. So 2 sources means I have to use 2 different stories I've read. Well, what have I read recently that talks about wildfires being a danger to people and the environment? Well, I know in class we read a story called Wildfires, and I also read a story called Windy Gale. These 2 stories both explicitly dealt with the dangers of wildfires, so thus, those are the 2 texts I will be using. So far I've determined that I'm going to write a response to text. I know this because I'm being asked to write about something I have read about, and I'm being asked to cite sources. I also determined that I'm going to have to use the article Wildfires and the article Windy Gale to provide my evidence. So the next step I need to do is look at the question word or the task word and determine what exactly I'm being asked to do. When I look back and read my prompt, how are wildfires a danger to the environment and the people living in their path, I can determine that how is my question word. I also have a directive word or a task word down here in the second sentence, use. So let's look at our task word or question word matrix to determine what these mean. Looking at the matrix, I can determine that when I'm asked a question word how, it means I need to provide an explanation. And I look down here at the bottom and I don't see use. This is going to happen from time to time as there are too many task words to put on the matrix, but I know that use means that I have to provide something. So now I look back at the prompt again. Looking back at the prompt now, I know that how means I have to explain. So I will have to explain that wildfires are a danger to the environment and to the people. And use text evidence means I have to provide evidence. When I think about writing about text and I'm being asked to provide evidence, I know that that probably means quotes. So I've done step 1. I've determined that I have to write a response to text. I've done step 2. I've determined that I'm going to write about the article Wildfires and the article Windy Gale. I've done step 3 and I've determined that the question word how means that I have to explain that wildfires are detrimental to both people and the environment, and I have to provide quotes from the 2 articles to do that. Now I have to deconstruct or unpack the question by identifying keywords and clarifying dense text. This means I have to look back at the prompt and determine what words or what vocabulary might give students trouble. I have to determine if there are pronouns that I need to help students recall the noun or the antecedent that they are describing. And I also have to go ahead and pre-plan some questions I'm going to ask students to help them unpack the material. And I might have to anticipate what questions they'll have for me. Frankly, there are many ways this can be done. I would probably start by asking the students what the prompt is about in one word. I would hope that they'd be able to tell me wildfires. If they wouldn't, I would have to somehow lead them there. Now, what about wildfires? What are wildfires? Well, they are a danger, and they're a danger to who? Well, people and the environment. Those are the key terms I'd want them to get out of the prompt. They're going to explain wildfires are a danger to people and the environment, or environment and people. If these key terms haven't been gone over in the unit, such as wildfires and environment, I would take a second and explain what those vocabulary words mean. I can also see when it says living in their path to describe people being difficult for students. So I might ask them, what does that mean, living in their path? What kind of people does the wildfire affect? It's not everybody. If I live 100 miles away, it doesn't bother me, but if I'm in the neighborhood, it's probably going to be an issue. I'd also look at the next sentence. Use text evidence from two sources to answer the prompt. At this point, students might not know what a prompt is, and so I would tell them that the prompt specifically here is referring to the question up here. I would also explain to them again that evidence from two sources means quotes or paraphrases. I have to use textual evidence to answer the prompt. My final step in analyzing the prompt is that I have to use the question or the prompt to write my thesis. This won't work 100% of the time, but it should carry students through the majority of the time. Let's look back at the prompt. When I look back at the prompt, there are a few words or key terms that I can determine should probably be in my thesis. I know for a fact I need to use the names of the articles I'll be referencing. I also know that I should probably use the word explain so that I'm explicitly doing what the question is asking me to do. And then I have these other key words: wildfires, dangers, environment, and people. Since those are such key words in the prompt, they should also be included in my thesis. Students should eventually end on a thesis like this. The articles Wildfires and Windy Gale both explain how wildfires can be dangerous for both people and the environment. We can see that I see some of my key terms. I see explain, wildfires, dangerous, people, environment. I have also explicitly named the two texts I'll be talking about. This follows the response to text frame that we've been using. This will be difficult for students at first, and you might have to show them how you synthesize the thesis from the question. With practice, this will be a task that students can take on their own. It will be a gradual release of responsibility, with you probably doing the majority of the work at the beginning and releasing the responsibility to the students so that they're completely doing this independently in the end, hopefully before CASP testing. The whole process will be that way. The first time you analyze a prompt, you're going to do the majority of the work. You're going to model what it looks like. You're going to think aloud what your thought process is. The more we do it, the more students will become comfortable and the more responsibility they can take. We should also encourage students to do this on their own. As the CAS test approaches, I would encourage you to analyze a prompt daily. Get students into the habit. Whatever prompt you'll be writing about, go ahead and analyze it. It will get much easier as the week progresses, and as the more cycles of the Wonders plan we do, it'll get easier overall as well.